Today on Lighting Techniques, we're going to be taking this video game design asset of a dining room and relighting it so that it looks like this. And then I'll make a second part to the video that shows you how I animated a crackling fireplace, lightning outside of the windows, and a power outage. My name is Adam, and this is Light and Game Design, the first YouTube game design channel dedicated to the art of lighting. I'm hoping this will inspire you on your game design journey, so be sure to subscribe for regular updates. Alright, so this is the Victorian Dining Room. It's a really cool asset pack that you can find on the Unreal Engine store. Great table. I've actually gone and stolen some food from some other asset packs to make sure the table has lots of food on it. We've got some great windows that look outside, a nice chandelier, lots of light fixtures and a fireplace, paintings. Let me take you outside so you can see what's really going on here. I added some trees, so we have just a little bit of texture out the windows, sky sphere. So first thing you always want to do is you want to get all of the lights off that you can. Any lighting that's on is just kind of distract you and you won't really know what you're looking at. So now we're just going to work with the sky sphere, which since it's going to be a nice thunderstorm rainy night, let's go ahead and make the top of the sky sphere black. We're even going to take the horizon line way down. That's horizon completely off. Just have a little bit of a kiss of the horizon. So it's just kind of mostly these dark clouds, and then we can even actually thin out the clouds with their opacity. There we go. That seems like a really nice background to start with. So I just turned on the directional light so that we can see outside. And right now you can see that the directional light is pointing into the windows. So you can actually come here and just look at lighting only. So now we can just see lighting without textures. So let's just go ahead and delete this spotlight. And now we can just see the directional light that we're playing with. So I can kind of rotate it down, rotate it across the table. I don't exactly like how there's so much shadows in the trees there. That's not bad. Now there's shadows of trees and light on the table. We can even raise it up a couple of clicks so that maybe we get a little light on the wall there. That's actually not bad. So real quick, we're going to go ahead and take our moonlight, directional light. We're going to pick a nice moonlight color, nice steel sort of blue. There we go. And we'll go ahead and leave it at 100. And we'll go ahead and turn our textures back on. So now we've got like a nice little bit of moonlight on those trees. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to make our cheat light. So we're going to grab the directional light and we're going to make a quick copy of it, identical. But this light, we're going to turn the shadows off. So you can see here, we can see a lot more in the building. Does not look good because basically we have moonlight that's just casting through all of these objects and blowing out this wall. So we're going to take our cheat light all the way down to 0 so we can't see it. We're going to look at the room and then we're going to begin sneaking the room in. That's only 1 point instead of 100, which the moonlight is. Here's 2 points. So basically I'm getting myself a little bit of light on this wall and a little bit of light on this beam up here and a little bit of extra light on the chandelier. So it all feels like it's coming from bounce light in the window. Basically we're cheating ray tracing, which is a nice cheap way to do it. All right. So right now I feel like the light coming into the room is really nice, that we can have a nice highlight on the table in several places, a nice slash of light on the floor. But I'm not really happy with how bright all these leaves are on the trees in comparison to the kind of rest of the room. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick. I'm going to take all of the trees, which are actually in my persistent level here, and I'm going to change their lighting channel. So in Unreal Engine, you can actually light things in multiple channels. So a light will only illuminate an object if it's in the same channel. So if I turn off the trees, they have no light on them at all. And I'm going to put them into channel 1. So we have a separate control point for the trees, right? So if I unselect the trees, you can see that they're not being lit by our moonlight. So now let's go ahead and take our directional light that has a shadow, and we're going to duplicate it again. But this time, we're going to go down and we're going to turn this specific light so that it can only light the trees, which gives us a different sort of control point. And if I can just remember where channels are, here we go. So we'll turn it off of channel 0. And we'll be lighting channel 1, which is just the trees. So now I can come back and turn this light all the way off, and I have myself a nice control point of just adding a hair's breadth of light on those trees. Now also notice that the ground outside, which is just the landscape tool, is really bright. So if we take that landscape tool, we can also just turn off its lighting channel 0, and now it's going to not get any lighting at all, because I was just kind of using that to mask out the sky. So there we go. Now we just have some nice moonlight trees. We can even come back and take our first directional light, which is our moonlight through the windows, and I'm going to actually make it just a little bit brighter. There we go. But the trees are still dark because they're on their own channel. And we have a nice little bit of bounce lighting that almost feels like it's coming off of the table. So now that we're going to go ahead and light our fireplace, there's a nice particle effect running that has a emissive light, so it looks like it's lighting, but you can tell it's actually not really lighting anything around it, just kind of seen in the reflections and the sheens of the objects. So a point light is going to emanate light in all directions like a little light bulb. So I'm going to go ahead and just push one little point light inside of the fireplace. There we go. And see what that kind of does for us. So now we can see that there's light coming out of the fireplace, underlighting some of this structure, and I think that's really pretty. So let's go ahead and pick a nice fire color. There we go. That really feels like you might be coming up against the fire. And you can see here just a little bit of moonlight's actually mixing with this color. So if I turn the light off outside, you can see how pure it is if we didn't have moonlight. Now, looking at it from the back of the room, we can see the fire clearly, but it doesn't really feel like this fire is lighting the whole room, so now we're going to start cheating. I'm going to start with a rectangular light. This is a big flat panel of light, similar to a film Fresnel or large softbox. And since a fireplace is a large object and not like a little pin spotlight, you want to use a large light source because it'll keep everything feeling very soft. So we'll go ahead and we'll place this light right in front of the fireplace. We're going to make it bigger, so it feels like it's about the size of the fireplace. There we go. And then we're going to come in and we're going to pick a similar color, but I'm going to keep it just a little bit more desaturated. And there we go. So it's hitting the ceiling a little bit. We'll angle up so it hits some more of the ceiling. And then we're going to go ahead and bring the brightness up a little bit, and we'll step back. So now it looks like the light's coming from the fireplace. It's a little yellow, so I'll just kind of golden it up a little bit more. There we go. So now I feel like I've got the fireplace casting light on the ceiling, but I don't feel like the fireplace is casting light on the walls. So we're going to go ahead and make 3 of these. And this is important because a fire actually has a nice flicker to it. So if we give ourselves more than one light, we can actually flicker them later, which will be in part 2 of this episode. So I'm going to rotate this first light over just so we get a nice side glow up on the door and up on the walls. That feels better. And then I'll take its mirror partner and angle it so it's also uplighting the doors. There we go. So we basically have 3 rectangular lights placed around the fireplace to emanate in all directions. You know what's actually bothering me? This is very dark here from the fire, so maybe we should just take one of these rectangular lights, the straight-on one. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. We'll flip it around. There we go. And now we're kind of uplighting the mantle above the fireplace. Yeah, it feels pretty good, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dim it down because it would be in a little bit of shadow. I'll make it a dynamic light. I'll make this light a dynamic light. So now everything is nice and fresh and being rendered live by our graphics card. And now I feel like I got a really nice backlight to the room. It's actually accentuating these beams, putting a nice dark shadow on the back of each beam. And as you look at the chandelier, we can see the lit ceiling behind it, so the chandelier really pops out. So I'm really, really happy with the way that this fire and this moonlight is starting to play together. So I've added a quick candle layer here that we can use. So let's go ahead and put in a point light again that we're going to use for lighting the candles. Now right now I'm kind of getting confused on what I'm looking at, so let's go ahead and turn off all of the textures so we can actually just see our single point source light. There we go. And that light's really cold. So we're actually going to use a color temperature feature and dial it into what a candle might be. So let's say the candle's around 1900 Kelvin. That might be really, really warm. 2300 Kelvin. There we go. That's a little more realistic. And then we're going to place this light directly above the candelabra so that the shadow is straight beneath it. I would raise it. There we go. So now I've jumped into the game with the textures, and you can see that the one light we've added on this candle is really kind of nicely lighting the table and not the rest of the candles. So let's go ahead and light all of the candles. So now what's kind of fun is I want you to take all 4 of these lights, go ahead and take its attenuation radius or the size of the light all the way to 0. So we can actually then increase the size of the light. Here you can see it going slowly until we're only lighting what we want to be lighting. Now, we could go ahead and make this a big light. There's plenty of light now on all the walls, right? And we can go ahead and make sure we have all our textures turned on. And we've got like a beautiful lighting scene. But I feel like because this light is now hitting the walls, it's all sort of the same flat level, and I really want to add a lot of dimension. So what we're going to do is take the radius back down to about 100, and you can see we're just lighting the table with little pools, but I'm going to keep pushing it just until I get to the chairs, I think. Because if I get to the chairs, then it will feel like if you're sitting at dinner, there's a really nice intimate, there we go, so the light only extends to the chairs, but not to the walls. So now I'm back in the editor, and I'm going to grab all of the lights around the room, and I'm actually going to change its texture just so we can see it lit up. I made my own emissive texture here. So just switch it, and now it looks like these little glass envelopes or lenses are turned on. And we're going to do the same up here for the main chandelier. There we go. So now that those lights are quote-unquote turned on, we actually have to add a light so that they can do something to our room. So let's start here with just the first light. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab a point light as we've been using, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and take the point light and place it right in the middle of the light. Now I know you guys have been trying this with lighting and it's frustrated you in that you're going to place the light on the wall, it's going to be kind of bright, and it's going to cast some nasty shadows. So first things we want to do is let's just turn off the shadows right off the bat. Don't need it. Right? And in fact, when you're rendering and losing frame rate from lighting, a lot of times it's because you're casting shadows. So if you turn off shadows on a lot of lights, you can actually get the frame rates back. So now with this fixture, if we jump back into the game, it's really bright, kind of annoying, and flat, right? Because there is no shadow. But this is where we have a sneaky little trick, and we can start using something called an IES file. So what's an IES file? It's actually a measurement of a real-world light in 3 dimensions, so we can kind of get more optics that feel like it's actually going through a lens. So we're just going to grab one for a second. This is called display, and we'll just drop it on the IES texture for that light, and you'll notice that something is very different, right? Now the light has a behavior to it. It has a directionality. So I can actually rotate it and kind of use these shapes on this texture to my advantage, right? Here's a nice kind of spread little uplight. But what I want is a nice little glow, but I would like there to be sort of shadow coming from this. So one of the things I love best, and this is the PBR Lights pack that's also in the Unreal Engine store, is I'll actually jump over and steal let's try this. Because here I can have a bright source and a big shadow underneath, because you would have a shadow cast by this light fixture. So let's go ahead and grab our light again. We'll drop this light on, and now you can see the 3-dimensional map of the lighting. And we can kind of rotate it until we get a nice shape. It's really bright and hot. Let's raise it up a little bit. Yeah, that's not bad. And then we can go ahead and let's go ahead and get it to a normal intensity that's not so bright. And we're going to use temperature. We're going to go ahead and put this at 3000 Kelvin. Just kind of like what a warm light bulb might be. Yeah, let's play and take a look. It's a little high. The hot spot is a little high. I think that where you see my little crosshair, that wants to be a little bit lower. And maybe there's a different shape we can use too. So let's lower it down and let's try this Marietta, because the Crest Hill Classic is so dark and this has at least got some little streaks coming. So I think that might feel more realistic. Now let's take a look at that. All right, so now we got this really hot line that I'm not digging. Let's try a different one. There we go. The Crest Hill glass. So this is actually from a decorative light, but it's kind of emanating what light might do if it was coming through glass. All right, let's jump in the editor and see how that looks. That feels really nice, because right now I feel like this big bulb has a nice line coming off of it. There's a nice little V shape coming out of the top. That feels really, really natural. Compared to where we were before. Some problems with the fact that we've just copy and pasted all the lights. The IES file is identical, and it feels like they're all just a little bit too perfectly the same. So we kind of want to break them up a little bit, and I'll show you how we'll do this. We'll just grab one light and then just go ahead and rotate it, just one tiny click. We'll grab another random light, just rotate it, one click. Grab this light, rotate it, one click. Grab this light, rotate it. So now it just kind of breaks it up a little bit so they don't feel like they're all on the wall perfectly. And the second thing we're going to do is, like, incandescent light bulbs or lamps have like a little bit of a color temperature difference. So right now they're all at 3000. But what if we, for example, took this one light and maybe changed its color so it's a little bit colder? So let's take him to 3400. And now you can see the difference that I'm talking about in color temperature. The guy on the right is the 3000 and the guy on the left is the 3400. Very subtle difference in the temperature. They look the same if you weren't kind of paying attention, but there's a little bit of difference and it gives us just a little bit more sparkle or depth. So we're going to go ahead and do that to a couple of other random lights, and we'll just add or minus. This one is 3000, so we'll go to 2600, so it's a little bit warmer. I'll take this light and we'll go back up to 3400, and then we'll come over here and we'll take the last light back down to 2600 and hit play. And now you can just kind of see that the lights, it's very subtle, but there's some are a little cooler and warmer than others, so it kind of breaks it up and adds some depth. Second thing, now that we have these all in their own group that we can turn on the lights here, we can see how much light is actually spilling into the rest of the room. So I'm going to turn everything off but the sconces. So now this is just the sconces, and you can see we're getting some nice light on the ceiling, nice reflections on the floor. But we're going to grab all the lights as we did before, and we're going to take the radius down to 0. And I'm going to put a 50 radius, 60, maybe 100, and I'm going to keep spreading these lights. 300, 400. Now at about 400, I'm starting to light the ceiling. And I'm trying not to light the ceiling with these lights because I want to be able to make sure the fireplace really stands out. So maybe I'll bring it back to about 375, 350 radius, 340. So just a little bit of light on the ceiling. But another thing that's important to realize is we're just lighting the walls, right? Just like the kitchen table here, or the dining room table, we didn't want to spill light outwards. We're trying to create depth in this 3D environment. Okay, so the next thing as I look at the room that I notice, we really need to pay attention to the paintings. So in video game design, especially as you're trying to light it, you want to kind of keep light off of the kind of less detailed, less ornate objects, because it lets a player's imagination think it's more realistic than it is. But if you have something or a nice asset like this that's got nice texture and nice painting on it, you need to highlight it, right? This is just a nice little spotlight to accent it. Make it a little brighter. So we start to light this, yeah, so if guests start to see, or the players start to see that there's a light on this nice object, they can see the texture and the whole room begins to feel more expensive. Go ahead and make this a little tighter so it's not, see, I can widen it up, but then I'm lighting this wallpaper and the wallpaper texture kind of looks like garbage. So let's go ahead and bring that cone in off the wallpaper and just hit this nice painting. And then we'll make it just a little bit brighter for right now. And let's just maybe warm it up a little tiny bit. There we go. So now you can see the difference between a lit painting and an unlit painting. Nice. Now I have like a nice clean room with 3 nice paintings, and we have a nice lit table. And I think the one thing we haven't really lit yet is going to be this chandelier, which would uplight on the ceiling and probably cast some light on the table. I'm going to go ahead and start turning off all of the lighting except for what's outside so that I can be sure that I know. Actually, no, we'll just go ahead and turn off all the lighting. There we go. So now I only have the single point light that's going to start our chandelier. So let's go ahead and turn movable off, and we'll start placing this in each of the different little chandeliers. Okay, so now we've got a lot of light on the ceiling. It's pretty nuts, right? If I turned on the fireplace, for example, you can see that this can't even compete with our nice fireplace. So we're gonna grab the chandelier lights. We're gonna warm them up using color temperature again, and we're gonna go to about 3,500. So it feels electric, and if I turn the fireplace on, you can see there's a color difference. The fireplace is a lot warmer than the chandelier. So now we'll take the chandelier all the way out, turn all of our lighting back on, and then we'll just bring the chandelier lighting in slowly. So that's only 1 point, right? Without 1, I'd even come back to about 0.75. So now I feel like if this light is adding a nice glow on the ceiling, right? And it's actually hitting the inside of this coffer, which casts great shadows here, and it's really important to have these dark shadows. The pig doesn't look so good, does he? So let's add a little downlight spotlight that's gonna be part of the chandelier group, just on the pig. I'll turn off all of the other lighting except for the candles so that we can see what we're doing in contrast with the candles. I'm gonna go ahead and use temperature. I'll match the ceiling, which is 3,500. I'll make it nice and bright. It's probably too bright. Go ahead and place it around where the chandelier is. See the shadows I'm getting from the chain? So I'm actually gonna come below, cheat. I'm gonna drop the light right below the chandelier so I'm not getting extra shadows. Point at the pig a little bit. I'm gonna take the candles out so we can just see the pig. And then we'll take our radius all the way in and just, there we go. Add a little bit of highlight on the pig artistically. Great, so we'll go ahead and turn all the other lights on. Turn our pig all the way off and then start to add it back into our layers. It's about 100, it's about 150, 200. And then we'll go ahead and click play and see how it looks. So now as I look at this room, the brightest thing is the pig, but I'm kind of okay with that. He's at the center of the dinner table. The fire feels really good. It's really feeling like a nice scene right now. If I were to polish this up, I would probably take the fireplace lighting, and let's go ahead and get that fireplace lighting a bit more roaring. I think it's just a little, it's not really doing it to about 30. And then it feels a little bit like a peach and not like a golden fire. There we go. There we go. That feels a bit more dramatic. Let's go ahead and hit play. Now, yes, so now the pig is still as bright as we left it, but the fire lighting makes the fire seem like the most dramatic point of the room. And the pig is kind of balanced with it and no longer dominating the visual room. As I look at the fireplace, I feel like the light emanating from it, we can kind of see our rectangular light there. That's no good. And the light inside is not that bright. So let's just touch up the light inside of the fireplace and let's just go for it. Let's take it from 8 to 500. That's ridiculous. 100, 75, 60, 55, 75. And then even this, it's too similar color, so I'm gonna try to go a little bit more red. So it stands out a little bit. Great. So it's time to polish up this lighting really quickly and really make it look spectacular. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our moonlight that's outside again. If you guys remember, that was the first light we really added. And when I get that directional light, I'm gonna go ahead and turn its bloom on, which we've talked about in other lighting videos. But I wanna get some nice moonlight shaft kind of coming through the windows so that as you move around the room, you can kind of catch moving in and out of these different shafts, and the directional light is also catching a nice shadows from those different tree branches. Let's go ahead and beef that up a little bit more, and then it looks really bright, so let's go ahead and just take the bloom, and we can make that a little bit more of a moonlight color so that it kind of stands out on its own. Yeah, oh, that's a little bit saturate, so I'll just come back and desaturate it just a little bit. Right, we were at no saturation before, and I'll just roll in a little bit of saturation so it doesn't feel like it's so hot. So that's really nice. Second thing is I'm not quite feeling our secondary cheat light. If you remember from earlier on, the second light we had was a directional light without shadow so I could fill the room. So I actually think I'm gonna go ahead and just delete it. I think it's making the room too wishy-washy. There we go. Now everything feels a lot more crisp, and we have these really nice black shadows in the ceiling. And that's where things get really slick. we're going to replace that cheat light we had with a skylight, which is a kind of our almost final polish light. So the skylight emanates light in all directions. See, I just turned it on really bright. So we'll turn it off, and then we're going to just sneak it in. Looks like maybe 10 points. So now you can see that the shadows are thinner. But this is where the real magic is. We can change the color of this magical directionless light. And you can do something kind of fun. You can make a nice magenta purple, which is going to feel like a very kids movie or almost Disney in the way that the color's represented. But then I can just tweak this color again and come back to a nice green and then dim it out to about... So now you have this nice green fill in the shadows, which is kind of interesting actually, in contrast with the blue that's outside. Yeah, you know what, let's go back to, we'll take that little green fill light and come back towards cyan, just so it connects to the blue outside a little bit more. That's not bad, but yeah, you can see that color that I'm looking at now in the beams kind of glues everything together. So the skylight, while convenient to just get a scene lit so you can see what you're doing, is really sometimes the last light you want to use because it's going to be the light that glues together each of the separate layers of lighting that we've been building all along. So yes, again, the skylight is the glue. Last step is we have a post-process volume. And in the post-process volume, we're going to do a few little tricks to kind of spice this up. So we're going to turn on the vignette, which is just a graphic that kind of takes down the brightness in the corner of our vision. And we're going to bring that in pretty heavy. So that just helps us whenever we're looking a different direction, the center is going to be a little bit brighter. So that just kind of takes our view down. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to add some bloom to all of the lighting in our view. So that's actually going to take the point sources and kind of really brighten them up, and it has sort of a nostalgic feel to it in its color, like almost like I guess there's an old film trick they would put Vaseline on the lens of a camera. But so let's go ahead and we'll take that, keep its intensity up, but we'll take the threshold down, and we'll just work with threshold. So we'll just want to get really hot points at all the little sources, but not fill out our shadows too much. So let's try this. Yeah, that feels great. Now I feel like there's a really nice bit of highlight. If anything, the sconces might be a little bright. So I might actually come back and just take the sconce lights, and let's go ahead and take those back down to about half of what they are. Play again. Yeah, our table feels pretty bright. The pig is bright, but you know, I might take the sides of the table down just a little bit. So we'll go back to our candles. And this is why it's so important to be organized in these files, because I can just jump back to the candles, and then I'll go ahead and let me cut their brightness in half. So now that the candles are just a little bit dimmer on the table, the pig really shines, and I don't feel like I'm overexposed. All right, so we took the sconces and the candles down, but now the chandelier seems really, really hot. So I think we're gonna go back and we're just gonna take down the post-process volume where there is a little bit of bloom. We're just gonna raise its threshold a little bit. It doesn't cheat through too much. And we'll jump back in the game. There we go. Now I feel like there's a really, really nice balance. We get some nice little shafts of moonlight outside. And yeah, I would say that this is done. Thank you guys for coming on this game design journey with me. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe, as I will keep this series going. And I'd love to chat with you in the comments below.